Good morning, my name's Craig Jackson. I'm here in Franklin, Kentucky. That's south central Kentucky, right towards the Tennessee border. Today's July 3rd, and we're going to talk about my apiary and do an inspection today. It's about 10 a.m. It is already hot. You can see sweat coming off of me. We're trying to do the first portion of this video in the shade. Talking about my apiary, I've got 7 hives in place here, and then I've got equipment stored within a fenced-in area. I am in a horse pasture, so let's talk about some positives and negatives of my apiary. One, I do have it fenced in. That keeps the horses from getting in there. Helps also discourage some predators from visiting. We'll have skunks, possums, raccoons. They all could possibly get in there. I've got the hives are all elevated, so they're far enough off the ground so that it discourages any skunks in that area. Really don't have any problem with any bears or anything like that in this area. Another thing on the hive, you can see on the ground I have gravel that is covering landscape fabric, and I've got that in place so it keeps the weeds down. I don't have to worry about weed eating the area and disturbing the bees throughout the year. Another positive on the hive, I've got the hive in open sun most of the day, so that keeps the moisture down, helps also reduce the small hive beetles. Another positive on the hive, I'm away from any neighbors. My closest neighbor is over here. They're about 200 yards away. Besides that, it's all open area. I've got a water source nearby. You can see that lake over there. And then there's plenty of trees nearby for any type of pollen and some nectar sources. We have some flowering trees. Right now, the main nectar and pollen sources I've got is mimosa and white clover. I got about another week left until I hit the dearth, so this is my optimal time to collect honey. Disadvantages on my apiary. One, you can see that all the hives are very close together. This encourages drift, and I can spread diseases easily from one hive to another. I could correct that if I spread out the hives 15, 30 meters apart from one another. Another disadvantage, you can see that right now the shade is just coming back from the hive. So the hive does not get that early morning sun. It doesn't allow the bees to get warmed up and go out and start collecting nectar as early as they otherwise could. East is that direction, west is that direction. Sun's coming up over here. I got trees shaded in, shading the hive right now. It would be better if I oriented the hive probably down there near that white barn facing this way. If I could have them facing to the east and south, they're going to get a lot more early start. Hive will warm up. I'll collect more nectar. The other thing with this, as the sun goes down there, they do not have evening shade. So unfortunately, the hives will get very hot during the summer months. Again, if I could put something in place to help cool down the hives earlier or in the evening, it would help. Or orient them in a shady area. For me, the advantage is I do like to do some of my inspections during the summer, the hotter days, in the early morning when there's shade. It keeps it cooler for me. Let's see, other advantages in the apiary. I've got a lot of my equipment stored in there, and I'm able to put that in place, enabling me to get to it a lot quicker. And I also can maneuver hives around. I don't have to do as much lifting or moving because I can set hive bodies on top of on the stands and so forth. Other disadvantages. That's probably about it. I mean, I could do a few other things to help out with this. Again, spacing is good. Advantages, I do have this apiary up high, so it's an easy landmark for the bees to find. That's not a problem. It's probably a disadvantage because I do think I have probably too many bees to service the amount of available nectar and pollen sources around. So the amount of available resources is probably not enough to support the hives that I've got. Okay, so let's talk about inspections. Today we're going to be inspecting hive number 7. So that's the 7th one from the left. You can see it over there, standing up high. That hive did overwinter, but I did do a split on it earlier this year, and I moved the queen out of that hive. As far as inspection frequency, you want to do your inspections here from about the 1st of March all the way until July, August, about every 10 days. You want to wait until it's at least 50 degrees outside before you do an inspection. You want to also make sure you've got a clear day, no rain. Do the inspections about every 7 to 10 days, and that helps ensure that you're picking up any potential for swarms, any issues with diseases, any issues with spacing that you need to allow if you need to make any corrections for spacing. You want to look at the brood health and so forth. So that's inspection frequency. So in this inspections, the things that you're going to be looking for and what I'm going to look for today, and this is pretty much the same on all my inspections, I'm going to look for the health of the colony. I'm going to look for I'm going to look for any diseases. I'm going to look for nutrition. I'm going to look to see if the queen is present or I've got evidence of the queen, and any irregular behavior of the bees. So as I look through those, the disease characteristics I might look for, if I look at the brood and find any chalky brood, that's emblematic of chalk brood. I want to look at the larvae to see if there's anything where they are disformed, disfigured, the brood has been chewed. Look for any bald brood on the bees. Brown brood or brown larva could be an indication of American foul brood or European foul brood. You can check that with you can do a test to confirm it, but you also can use a toothpick and go around inside the larva and see if it comes out in a stringy manner. But the only way that you really can confirm it is with a test. You want to look for evidence of any type of varroa, heavy levels of varroa. Usually you'll do a mite inspection, which uses a mite wash. And from an inspection standpoint, I want to try to do about 10% of my hives every week. I'm not going to do a mite wash today, but I kind of flow between each one of the hives. Other brood type of diseases, I could look for any deformed wings, any bees with K-wing, K-shaped wings, any behavior problems with the bees, any black bees. I've had chronic bee paralysis before, so those are some of the things I look for. Sac brood is another thing you would want to look for. That's the larva would have a shrunken head and brown. The larva is laying down towards the bottom of the brood or bottom of the chamber. That's bad. You want to look inside each of the brood cells to see if there's plenty of royal jelly there as well. So if you do see a problem, you have to take action appropriately. One of the main things that contribute to a lot of these diseases is varroa mite, and we want to try to control varroa through integrated pest management. There's really 4 principles of integrated pest management. One, you want to set threshold levels. So the threshold level that we have in place here, if you have 2 out of 100 or 2% of mites found through a mite wash, and that's from about the beginning of March until around August. So 2 out of 100, then you want to do treatment, and then the threshold beyond that in the fall months, say late August, September, October, is 3 out of 100. So you set your threshold levels, then you monitor, like I said, about 10% of the hives each week. If any of my hives have varroa, I want to treat the entire apiary. Again, one of the reasons for that, I've got hives so closely spaced together that there is a good possibility of drift in there, and you could easily have some hives that move. Got a bee right here on me. You'd have some hives that would spread disease from one to the other. Besides varroa, I'm sorry, besides testing, you want to do some type of preventive measures that you can to help prevent the spread. A couple of the things that I have put in place is I do use green drone comb. So that drone comb will be in place as the queen lays brood on the green drone comb. Mites will try to, they're more prolific on drone comb. So you take the drone comb out, you freeze it, reintroduce it to the hive, the bees clean that out. I've actually got a drone comb that I'd removed from this hive. It's been frozen. I'm going to put it back in place today. Another thing that you want to do, and the most important thing, is try to keep the hive healthy. If you got a hive that's healthy, it's going to be better than any other method that you can do for control. So that's making sure they got good nutrition in place, make sure they're in full sun. Another good advantage of this, being in full sun keeps the moisture content down low, so you don't have any, you don't have very much fungus or mold build up there. Other good methods for IPM, you can put in place screen bottom boards. I do have that on my hives. Besides Varroa, you have other pests that you want to try to control. Hive beetles. So being out in the sun helps with that. Another thing that you can do with hive beetles, I got a beetle cloth and I got beetle traps. They're in place on my hives. Another IPM technique is to help with tracheal mites, and that's using a grease patty. So I do serve that every year. And then another great thing that you can do that I try to practice is keeping the genetics strong. So I introduce new queens every year to change up the genetics, help prevent inbreeding among the bees. And I also try to introduce queens that have Varroa resistance, such as Russians or Saskatraz bees in place. Okay, I think that's about all. So let's get into the hive. Hive number 7, like I said, that was overwintered. Did a split, introduced a new queen, and queen started laying in mid to late April. I want to see how well it's doing right now. It was treated for mites earlier in the year using mite treatment, which was Apiary Life. That's kind of the final stage of IPM, is if you've done your treatments, if you've done your monitoring, you've exceeded your thresholds, and even after you put the preventive measures in place, then you've exceeded thresholds, then you have to do some type of chemical or essential oil type treatment. I try to rotate those so the bees don't get, so the Varroa mites don't develop any resistance. Apiary Life is what I used earlier this year. Couldn't have the honey supers on when you did it. This time of year, I would probably use some type of formic acid. And you want to rotate those. I'll use Hop Guard. I had been using Apiary, but the recent news shows that there are a lot of Amatraz resistant bees that are out there now. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, this is the hive we're going to inspect. As you do an inspection, I want to look at a couple of different frames in each of the hives. The honey supers, I'm going to be looking at to see if there's any moisture in there, how much honey has been collected, and to look for any pests. Down in the brood, again, I'm going to be looking for disease. I'm going to be looking for the healthiness of the brood and so forth. When you approach a hive, you want to approach it from the rear so you don't generate a defensive response in the bees. Swinging around to the front, we're going to look at the hives right here and look at the entrance to see exactly what's going on. So I can see I've got a very large number of bees that are coming in each minute. You can see some with pollen pods on the bottom. You see that yellow pollen as they come in. If you have more than if you have 10 to 20 bees every minute, then that's indicative of a good honey flow, and that's really what I got. I probably got a little bit more than that. You can see that besides the pollen, the yellow pollen that you see, some of these bees have got distended abdomens. That's indicative of them carrying nectar in place. At the front of the hive, you see some bees that are fanning their wings. They're trying to cool down the hive, all facing outward. Then you see some of these bees out at the front that are basically greeting most of the bees that are coming in. Those are guard bees. Looking at the front of the hive, one of the things you want to look at is on the front face, see if you see any feces of on the outside. That's indicative of some type of disease you might have to keep an eye on and do some type of treatment for. Looking at the ground in front, you want to look for a large number of bees that might be dead. You will have some bees there all the time, but if you see a large number, it could be an indication of a pesticide poisoning or some type of other disease. You also want to look on the ground to see if you see any bees that are crawling around. I don't see any of that. It doesn't look like there's any disease that's really hurting these bees that much. Okay. So I'm going to smoke a little at the front. Calms them down, and just FYI, this is not a hive, this is just equipment that's stored here. Pop open my migratory cover, smoke some in. All right, so you can see I've got my small hive beetle trap here. This is filled with some vegetable oil. Beetles get trapped in there, and basically the bees basically chase them in place. Okay, we are going to look at a few frames up here. I know my queen isn't up here. I've got a queen excluder right in place between the honey supers. So I want to look at 2 to 3 frames in each one. So this is a frame that's supposed to be a honey super, and it is empty. There's nothing really there in place at all. It's kind of disappointing. Here's another honey super. There is some nectar being stored, and I've got some pollen integrated in there. All these bees on this frame are worker bees. And I look at them, I'm trying to find any evidence that they have any issues with their health. I see none. Another frame, got a combination of nectar and pollen. No problems with the bees that I can see. Okay. Move very slowly as you move the hive. I'll put a little bit more here, a little bit more smoke. So as you look in here, if I see any bees that are facing upward, that's indicative of a guard bee. I don't see anything right now, so that's good. They're not real aggressive, or I'm sorry, defensive. Again, I'm going to look through here, see where I'm at on honey. Not very much honey at all. You can see that this is fairly recently drawn comb. It's a little bit newer. It's probably been drawn. It's probably been a couple weeks since it's been drawn, but it looks like it's never been filled with anything. one of the reasons why I'm probably not getting that much honey or nectar in this hive is because of the age of the workers. See, there's nothing in there either. Little bit in there. So if you remember, I said I did a split on this in April. So the time for the bees to for the new queen to lay, develop new brood, and that brood to develop into foragers probably hasn't been enough to successfully give these guys a good fighting chance to collect. All right, we're going to go down to the next one. Here's my entrance, or my queen excluder. Getting a little bit of defensive behavior. Make them a little bit more calm. So I'll take off my queen excluder. You can see here I've got some beetle cloth in place. Again, that helps with the small hive beetles. As that gets filled up with anything, then I'm going to make sure that take it out and replace it. Okay, now I'm into the brood box. I want to check 3 frames in here minimum. I'm looking for eggs, I'm looking for nutrition, I'm looking for any diseases. I see nothing wrong with the bees themselves. If at all possible, you want to make sure you hold this up. Use the sun on the background. There's room in here for them to lay eggs, for the queen to lay eggs. There's also room for more honey storage. It does not look at this point that there's any reason for me to add another super. You want to have at least 50% of all the frames full of bees before you do that. So this is a frame that I put in place a few weeks ago, hoping to have some drawn comb, and it doesn't look like they've done very much. I've pulled another comb that has partially been drawn. I'm going to put that in place now to give a little bit more room for the queen to lay if needed. Okay. And we look into the next one. Okay, so this is brood. It's a fairly decent pattern. I have some places where it's spotty. So that spottiness can be a couple of different things. One, it could be a problem with the genetics, that they try to react and pull out some inbred brood or some brood with other genetic problems. You see here I've got some places where I have perforations, so that could be indicative of some type of disease. I don't have anything in this open area here, so that's unfortunate. Don't see the queen. Over here the pattern's fairly decent as well. Not a lot of drones right now, so I probably would expect to see 10% of the population as drones right now. I am in a population increase period. I will be probably for another week. This is some drone frame that I put in place last week. Again, hoping for them to draw. They've done a little bit, but not a lot. I'm going to put the drone comb that I had pulled out back in. So again, all of the drones have been killed through the freezing process. The bees will clean that up and replace all the cells with new drone. So that helps kill off, or yeah, it helps kill off all the varroa that could be involved or hidden in those cap cells. One thing that I do like to do when I do my inspections is I do try to bring a camera. I'll take pictures of anything that is unusual. I'll also try to take pictures of the queen. That gives me a good history of everything that's going on. I keep track of the genetics of the queen. So one good practice that you can implement is changing out comb or foundation on a regular basis. I have a couple of pieces of foundation in here that I do want to change out, and a lot of times pesticides will get built up in those, and there's evidence that as pesticides get built up in there, there's some resistance that you'll see for the bees, and bees are actually more prone to get other diseases like nosema. So I'm looking on this frame. Hold the frame over top of the hive, at least till you know that there's no queen in place. I don't see any eggs here. There's definitely room to lay. We've got evidence of a drone right here. That's kind of the bigger one, and these are our workers. There's another drone. Looking for the queen. I do not see her. Here you've got a variety of different pollen in place. You really want to have at least one to two pollen and or nectar frames per brood box. We're going to keep on looking to see if we can find the queen, see if we can find some eggs and larvae in different stages. Again, I'm looking for any type of unusual behavior of the bees. I'm looking for any deformities in the wings. I'm looking for brood in the chambers to see if it is brown. Looking to see if I got any brood that might be at the bottom of the chamber, anything that is chewed. I don't see anything here, so I'm going to go a little further. Smell is another indication that there could be a problem. You get some foul odors in there when you have some of the foul broods. So this is a good pattern of brood, but it is spotty. You can see some spottiness in there. It's not ideal. Again, I'm going to be looking for the queen in here, try to find her if at all possible. Definitely want to be careful before I shake this off. You see I have some bees here, that one's carrying around some yellow pollen. Do not see the queen on this frame. Okay, so here I can see a queen cell. So that is more than likely that's a supersedure cell. So supersedure cells are usually kind of in the middle of the frame, and swarm cells are down towards the bottom. Supersedure cells would indicate they're trying to replace a queen that's failing. So here's a bald brood right there. That could be indicative of parasitic mite syndrome. Anything where you have chewed off cappings, and you know, again, I said genetics or disease could be indication of that spotty brood pattern. So here's some larvae. You see the white larva in place there. If you got larvae, then you know the queen's been there within 3 days. I'm sorry, the queen's been there probably within 9 days. If you see eggs is 3 days. Does look like I've got plenty of worker bees covering the brood. I've got a good amount there, so that's positive. Here I do have some comb that is being drawn, so that's fairly new. How much time do I have?
You're at 30.
30? Okay, we're going to continue this inspection for a little while, looking for the queen and looking for eggs. eggs are going to appear like very small pieces of white rice. So that is definitely a spotty brood pattern. Not very good at all. Don't really like that. I don't see anything really wrong with the bees themselves. Again, I got some perforated cappings up here. I do have a bee emerging, so that's good. The pattern really isn't what I would like to see. Based on this, my next inspection, I would probably need to do an alcohol wash to see what the mite levels are. I forgot to mention when I was looking in those upper honey cells, well, I don't know if I mentioned or not, those honey supers, besides looking for pests, besides looking for how much honey and nectar is being collected, I also want to be looking for if there's any mold, any moisture in place. I didn't see that there, so doing a good job as far as controlling moisture. So right now, I have not seen any evidence of the queen. Yeah, there's no evidence that the queen's there. Sometimes you can tell that the hive is queenless if you hear a large or a loud roar. The bees will do that. I haven't heard that yet, so I do think that there's definitely a queen in here. I just don't know where she's at. As far as nutrition, it looks like I have an adequate amount of nutrition in the hive. Just not doing a great job of collecting nectar for my own honey, for my own purposes. I'm going to go back over here and look at this a little bit. Maybe the queen's moved up into the upper brood chamber. She's definitely not going to be on this frame. Alright, so that's definitely freshly drawn comb. Let's see if we see anything here. So you can see larvae down in here for sure. You can see the larvae in there, and hopefully we can get an egg if I shake this off. Very, very young larva. Very young larva. You can see one egg right in there. So get a close-up of that and see if you can see that as a, looks like a small piece of rice. Right here in that cell.
See some down in here as well. Very young larva. Alright, so here you've got some drone brood in place. These larger cells are drone brood again. Got evidence of spotty brood pattern, some ball brood in there, indicative of possible parasite or parasitic mite syndrome. A lot of drone brood there. Do not see the queen. Still don't see the queen. Look at one last frame. Okay, so this frame is pretty decent. So this looks like it has the most recent activity. And I'm going to shake this off right on top of these other bees here. Okay, so here you see tons of good good larvae in place. Super seizure cell. Queen's definitely laying. There's a lot of royal jelly down in there, so they've got pretty good nutrition. So on this side, that looks like a great pattern. Try to look at the perimeter, see if I see any more eggs. Close up right in here. You should see a couple of eggs right through this area. Maybe over here too. Okay. All right. We'll put this back in place. So the one thing that we did not see was the queen. The queen is going to be bigger than a worker bee. It's going to be a little bit smaller than a drone. She's going to have a long abdomen. That's more or less for her eggs. The queen I have in this hive is a little bit slightly different color. She's orange. So I'll put these bees back in place right here. Just want to double check the top of this where I had bees. Make sure that there is no queen present. There's not. A lot of these bees are
40.
And some of them were dead already. So they hadn't been removed from the hive. The rest of them are just going to fly right back to where we were. Put everything back up in place.
Again, you do not have to see the queen to know that your hive is queen right. If you have eggs present, then you know she's probably there. I don't see any evidence of any other issues with the hive besides maybe a little bit a higher mite load than what you would expect. So I'm going to button it up. Last thing I do, I'm going to take documentation of exactly what I saw, talk about the nutrition level, talk about the mite load, indicate that next inspection that I want to do a mite check. Thank you very much.